Hi there.
Good morning, Kelly. Or
How are
you.
you?
I'm great. Good
Good,
afternoon.
good. Yeah, it is afternoon here, just barely.
I've just made myself a calming cup of coffee. Let me turn it around because you used to work with Lori King way back in the day.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Keep calm,
Ah,
calm, Russell
I love that. That's so great.
before the moment, doesn't it? So I
Excellent.
wanted to talk to you, Kelly. First of all, in my experience, every publisher has a different ranking and title and job description. So what is your actual title and job description?
My title is Associate Publisher and Editorial Director of Minotaur Books, which is the crime fiction and suspense fiction imprint at St. Martin's Press, which is part of Macmillan, just to go through the whole umbrella. And I do two things, I would say. Number one, I'm an editor and I work on and acquire and edit my own list of books, many of whom I've been working with for a long time, which is great. And then I also am sort of an administrator over the whole list, and I'm really involved in deciding what we buy and what we publish and how we position and working on all the Minotaur books, which is also a lot of fun. It's a great list. It's a varied list. It's super fun.
I've known you for a really long time, and I think when we started, you were primarily an editor, but as you've moved along,
Yeah.
you've acquired all these administrative duties. And I asked you
Yes.
that, sorry, I asked you that question because I thought it would be interesting for people to know how someone in your position is dealing with the current situation where we went from before with a capital B to where we are
Sure.
now so quickly.
Sure, for sure. It's funny. I think when this whole thing first started, my first thought was, this is going to be so easy to work at home. Like, I'm always dying to work at home. I have so much to read. I have so much to edit. It'd be so much easier if I could spend 3 days a week at home. Come to find out, that's not at all how it's turned out. It's very difficult to work at home for lots of reasons. There's a lot of distractions here. There's a lot of stuff I should be doing at home. There, every time I look up, there's something to clean or something to cook or something else to do. Um, and so it's not the sort of peace and quiet that you would have envisioned, to say nothing of my roommates here, who are lovely and wonderful quarantine companions, but also have their own work to do. And then, of course, trying to publish books and make decisions and meet with your colleagues and do all of that stuff also while you're still sitting in your living room is challenging. And I think we've done a really good job. We've adapted pretty well. I spend a lot of my day on Google Hangouts with other people, and we have all of our weekly meetings where we're essentially operating as normal, just with everyone in their own homes. I even have a colleague who is stuck in London, who went to London to see family, and got stuck there during the travel ban, and has been there for 6 weeks. And you'd never know. She's just, she's taking part in all of our meetings just like everybody else. So in some ways, that part of it, we've done an amazing job, I think, at adapting. But when you think about the number of times a day that I stop by someone's office or run into someone in the hall and say, "Oh, I was going to call you. Here's my question," and you can't do that. You have to schedule everything. You have to plan out what you're going to do. You have to really, we to find a whole new way to look at jackets online, to pass, when we publish a book, we lay out the jacket mechanical, the front, the back, the spine, and I sign off on it 3 times before it goes to the printer. We have to look at every single one of those things online now, and it's time consuming, and it's challenging for those of us who are more set in our ways than others, as far as learning all this new technology on the fly, because books have to be published, or they won't be if you don't learn it. So it's been quite an interesting 6 weeks. I'll say that. I'm settling in. I'm settling into routine, which is good.
Yeah, it really has been challenging. I think it's blown away the idea that you could work at home in your pajamas, because, if you're seeing people all every day, you have to do at least
Yeah.
a modicum of cleanup. I've also discovered, the old adage about, married for better, for worse, but not for lunch. Unfortunately, it's not true. So Rob and I, my husband of 30 years and I have skillfully avoided, the whole retirement thing about how would we ever live together full time.
Yeah.
And now here we are.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, Kelley, you're in New York, and
Yeah.
it's a way different situation with all kinds of, what do you want to call it, granular level decisions about reopening normal things, like how many people can get in an elevator or something. This is not, it doesn't work that way in Phoenix. I've been able to keep our whole staff employed, and we have worked staggered schedules. So I actually spend part of my time at the store commuting back and forth. And I work part of the time at home. So, it's not that different than the way it was before.
Yeah.
Although what I have found is what you suggested, everything now has to be scheduled, and it takes, I've tried to calculate, probably 5 times longer to do anything than before. Before, if Minotaur said, look, we have a great author that we'd like to promote, and we'd like to send him or her to you, and you'll do one of your book signings and the whole bit, it was really a breeze. It took like 2 emails to set a date. I sent an order. The shipping system worked. The books were actually published in print, which is another problem we're dealing with. And eventually the author in the book showed up and coincided, and we got it done. And now it's just endless. You have to negotiate with the publicist, then with the author. You have to juggle your calendar. You have to set up a shipment. You have to pick up the books. You have to, it's longer. And it does test, I think, the customer's patience, because they're used to a more instant supply than is possible. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what did you decide to do with books that were scheduled to publish, let's say, in May and in June? Are you continuing that? Moving them?
We've moved some and we've kept some. We made our decisions based on the most knowledge we could get, and consulting with the whole team and the authors and the agents, and try to decide what was going to be for the best. So we moved a lot of things in the month of May, although we did keep some. And we have mostly kept things. We've moved things out of the very beginning of June, but we've mostly kept things going forward from after the first week of June, with the belief that there are going to be enough things open and enough sort of hunger for new books that it is worth keeping some, because we can't. The publishing industry is a little bit like the Titanic, in that you can't turn it on a dime. You have to decide way in advance, and you don't want to hit the iceberg. So we were juggling when to move, when to put things back. And you're right, in New York, we don't really have a sense of when things are going to reopen, and when will bookstores be open across the country. It's going to be quite staggered. It's going to be very much looks like dependent on local decisions and local situations as far as the virus goes. And so to try to guess any of that just doesn't make sense. So we did our best, and we're going to see. We actually, we have a couple books. We published. Most of our April list did come out. It was already stuff that was in the works. It was at the printers. It was at the binderies. It was in the warehouse. They were in, books start shipping almost a month before their pub dates. So a lot of the April books came out even though we were in the middle of this. And we've had some books do pretty well and get some press and get some attention and get some sales. And so, I'm not sure what the best thing is going to be in the end. We've made our decisions and we're making the best of it across the board.
Well, same applies to us. I mean, we had books that we had already ordered that were impossible to stop because they were like already on the truck, is the famous phrase. And so we wound up with books coming here, and then we had to send another order to an author to make it all work out. So we're very dependent. Physical books are really dependent on the shipping system, but it also goes way back to the paper supply and the printer. And that's been a problem for some time, hasn't it? Actually finding enough paper and getting books on press.
Sure. There was famously there's been a crunch in the printing world since last year. And so that, it had eased, and it has eased, I would say, that situation that started, in last August, September. But it's a consideration. Every decision about publishing a book, it's not just, when do we want the book to come out? It's, can you get things scheduled? What does the author think? What is their schedule like? What's the publicity going to be like? What's the marketing going to be like? And layering the virus over those questions is just an extra complication. It doesn't, it's not as simple as, when can we print them? When will they come out? Are there going to be trucks? Is there going to be paper? What's the competition going to be like? All those questions, you've got to try to answer, and a lot of his guesswork, like it always is, so.
Absolutely true. And of course, it rolls down the line to us because, I'm finding I have to virtually check the title I want to promote because it may have leapt forward to a new pub date, or it may be that the book isn't available. There was a promotion for a St. Martin's title, the name of which is escaping me, that I really wanted to do for Mother's Day. And at least I checked to find out that in fact there are no books because it sold out and the reprint hasn't shown up. So a book that I might have wanted to, to publicize. Yeah. But what I did do is I pulled 2 or 3 arcs from Minotaur Advanced Reading Copies. Boy, am I going to miss those if you guys can't go back to.
We're, again, it's a question. I think a lot of people in your position have said, sure, I'm fine with electronic galleys, and a lot of people have said, give me back my ARCs. So we'll see. Right now it doesn't make sense to print them for lots of reasons, but we'll see. Who knows? I think one of the things,
sorry, I was just going to say, I understand that that there's nobody there to mail them out, which is a big problem. But some of us who work like you, I'm on a screen all day. And the last thing I want to do is read a book that way. But the other problem, which they have shown in educational studies and so forth, I can't retain it. If I read it digitally, I can't retain it. I'm a speed reader and I'm an eidetic memory person. If I don't have an actual physical book
in front of you.
Yeah. So in the worst case, we're wasting a lot of paper printing out electronic stuff for me to read. It's better manuscript. Oh no, it's hard to say. Well, anyway, I pulled a few and I wanted to ask you, I have not had a chance to read any of them because I am so far behind. So let you pitch a couple of arcs here and see what you think. All right, Leonard is supposed to come out in June. So is in fact The Art of Deception, to your knowledge, still publishing in June?
I can look. If you'll hold on 2 seconds, I'll just look on my little list. Art of Deception is coming out on June 16th, indeed.
Great. So this is in the Daughter of Sherlock Holmes mystery series.
Yeah.
We have a number of fans, one in particular who always likes a batch of them autographed. So I'm used to shipping to this author. And so it's a book that I will now read and do some promotion and set up something. What have you worked on it? Is there anything you can say about it?
I did not edit this book. One of my very brilliant colleagues edits it. It's a really fun series. It's a there's such a market for books like this that are Sherlock Holmes from a new angle or in a new guise. And I think the whole daughter thing is really, really smart. That first book was called The Daughter of Sherlock Holmes did really super out in the marketplace in hardcover and in paperback and in e, of course, but I think people really took to that concept that there's a daughter, and he's super smart about it. It's just a lot of fun for Holmes fans, for historical mystery fans. It's really a lot of fun, and there've been one a year. I think this one is the 3rd or the 4th maybe, and it's great. More to come. Also, we just signed up some more.
Right. This is actually the 4th. Yep.
Yeah.
I just looked it up. All right. So this charming gentleman, Roger Jonassen, The Mist for June. He's an author that lives in Iceland, but he actually came to visit us last spring. He brought his whole family on a holiday to Scottsdale, and he was planning to come again this year, which has been interrupted. So I'm going to set up, at his request, a virtual event with him in June. So are you on target to publish The Mist in June?
I'll look at that date also. The Mist, June 23rd, coming. Two of them.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
one is in the Hidden Iceland series, it says.
Yes.
He's, they described him as the Stephen King of Icelandic thrillers, which I think is an interesting description. And he's
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I love Stephen King's popularity, but I don't think it's exactly right. I think this is his second series with us, and he is beloved. There's such a market for Scandinavian fiction or for that kind of fiction, and he writes it so well, but it's not as bleak and dark and overwhelming as some of them are. And that's one of the things I like about him, is that they're very human. The characters are terrific, and his part of his profile is that he translated Agatha Christie into Icelandic, and I think we like to say he sort of absorbed some of the best of her abilities doing that, because he gets a lot of attention for that, and his mysteries, the puzzle part of his mystery, is really, really good, just solid stuff. We just signed him up for some more books too, so there's more to come. He's super talented and is doing a lot of different things. And it is, of course, like you said, travels a lot. It's a really nice guy. Does great events. So
he does. He's a blog mate of one of my authors, Jeffrey Seiger, who writes a wonderful books about Greece. So I'm actually thinking about putting the two of them together in June, which I think would be fun.
You've done such a good job, I think, at turning events into online extravaganzas. It's the work that independent bookstores are doing to try to bring readers and writers together is really inspiring during this time. And you've been leading the way with some of the things you're doing. I think it's great.
Well, thank you. We've been actually preparing for this for 30 years because it's always been our business model. And the reason is that Scottsdale is a tourist destination. So for many years, almost all of our customers didn't live here.
Right.
So this isn't really that different for us. Another book that I really like, and I'm going to talk to Keith Gala, who is an editor at Minotaur, colleague of yours you know really well, is Jennifer Hillier. Yep. I have to admit candidly, sorry, Jennifer, I didn't love Jar of Hearts. I know it won the thriller best first novel, was it, or best novel award?
Best novel.
And for some reason, it just didn't speak to me. And then, that's how books are, right?
Sure.
But I thought that this one, Little Secrets, was terrific. And what do you want to say, if anything, about Jennifer and Little Secrets?
Jennifer is a wonderful writer. She is one of our discoveries of the last couple of years. This is our second book with her. And she writes, each book is different. It's interesting that you say that about Jar of Hearts. But I think the humanity of the situation that she puts her characters in, they're very real feeling, the authenticity of it. She doesn't shy away from some of the scary parts and some of the hard emotions in the lives of her characters. And she does it so well. She talks about not being afraid to be afraid and put herself in situations as a writer that make her afraid. And she's so talented. This book, doesn't give anything away to say that it's about a married couple whose 5-year-old son was kidnapped a year earlier before the book opens. And it starts out, and the wife is trying to sort of put her life back together and decide if she's going to move on. And when I read the description, and I thought, I have a child who's much older than that, but I sometimes have a hard time with stories like that. And I could not put it down. By the time I got to the end of this book, I was putting it down just so that I could make it last longer. I was racing to the end, and I didn't quite want to get there. I wanted it to go on and on. Really gripping, really engaging, and like I said, people who there aren't clear good guys and bad guys. There are people who are trying to do their best as human beings, and it makes for really compelling reading.
I think it does too. I had much the same reaction to it. I have to say, in fairness about Jar of Hearts, that I am not a huge fan of psychological thrillers, possibly because I'm just overdosed. There are so many of them.
Imagine.
But in talking to DJ Palmer, whom I'm very fond of, and the new husband, we did a virtual event. He particularly recommended the book, and I try to trust recommendations. So I read it, and like you, I just raced through it, and she did surprise me, which often is not the case with me.
Yeah.
psychological thrillers, but this one did. You know, the other problem with them, Kelly, I find, is that to really make them work, oftentimes there's no one in the book you
Yeah.
really like.
Yeah.
In this
Yeah.
case, you really do like the mother who just won't give up on her
Yeah.
missing child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so my
Yeah.
final one I wanted to ask you about, it has come without any particular date. It just says summer reading, and I know absolutely nothing about it. It's called The Safe Place.
Yes. That's a debut novel, Anna Downs. Here, let me look up the exact date. I'll tell you what it is. It is coming on July 14th. It is great fun. It is a psychological thriller, but it's one of those. It's pure escapism. The main character is a sort of down on her luck actress in London who finds out from her agent that she's being fired and loses her regular day job all at the same time, and gets sort of a lifeline in the form of one of her bosses from her job that she's been fired from as a secretary, asked her to become his nanny and sort of housekeeper at their house in France. And she, thinks it's too good to be true and says, sure, she has to say yes, she has something else to do. And so she goes with them. His wife and daughter live there. His daughter is a little bit fragile and ill. She doesn't know very much about it. And it's a gorgeous place. It's a chateau. There's a pool. There's the ocean. It's just one wonderful thing after another. And then things just start to seem weirder and weirder, and they go wrong. And she suddenly realizes she's in way over her head with no way to get out. And it's absolutely gripping. The sort of French sunlight drenched thriller is really fun. And we're really excited about it. Coming in July. Anna lives in Australia, but is British by birth and is a wonderful writer, and actually used to be an actress, and also had a job like this, was a nanny for a French couple. And so it talks about how that experience inspired her. She also recorded the audio herself, which is super interesting. And I have not heard it yet, but I hear she did an amazing job. So yeah, she's really talented, and this is the first book we're doing with her debut, and we're really excited about it.
Well, I'm really glad you sold me on it, since I've already been asked to do a Zoom event with her from Australia. I've already done at least one Australian Zoom event because I have an author, Sulari Gentle, who I think is fabulous, who lives there. And I'd really like to get in touch with people like Jane Harper or Michael Robotham or Candace Fox, all of whom I know and all of whom have the store. So I'm thinking it might be nice for Anna if I put together one or two other Australian authors.
Little Australian panel, sure.
Yep. My own view, which I've been espousing, is that the Australian crime wave is going to gradually roll over the Scandinavian crime wave, because I think there are a lot of truly terrific authors there, and they have been underrepresented. The publishing industry there was really just an arm of British publishing for a long time, but they've come along. So before we stop, is there any other book? Because I just grabbed these at random. Is there a book that you'd really like to push? Sell me on it?
Let me see. That was a really good sampling you had there. I would mention two more that are coming, one in May and one in June, just because I can't help myself. One coming in May is Brian Panawich's new book called Hard Cash Valley. He is the author of Bull Mountain and Like Lions. They're sort of Southern noir, we call them. Really beautifully written, a little bit dark, but lots of fun. That one's coming, and so in a couple weeks, or in 1 week, I guess, May 5th, I believe. And then the other one I would mention is a series debut from a writer that I worked with a long time ago, and she sort of took a big break from crime writing to do other things and is now back. Her name is Sarah Stewart Taylor, and her book is called The Mountains Wild, and it is about a Long Island police detective who sort of in a dual narrative, part in the present day and part in the past, relives the case that inspired her to become a detective, which is the disappearance of her cousin in Dublin in the 90s. And it tells the story of what happened when her cousin disappeared back in the 90s, and she went to Dublin to try, as a 20-year-old, to try and find her and help the police. And now, as a homicide detective, when they find some evidence of her 20 years later, and she goes back to Dublin to try and wrap things up, once and for all. And it's gorgeous writing. It's, her evocation of Ireland then and now is really beautiful, and the characters are great. It's a lot of fun, and the first in a new series.
Well, I'm delighted that you told me on Panowich, but in truth, we already have a date set up for him on May
I'm
8th.
sure you do.
In fact, I'm sending the dropship order for him to sign the books. And Patrick of our staff, who is a terrific reviewer, has already set up a Zoom interview with Brian. Brian came to see us for the first book in this series.
Yeah.
And Hector, your chief publicist there, has already asked me to talk about the Mary Stuart Taylor. Do I have that right?
Sarah Stuart Taylor.
Sarah Stuart Taylor. Yeah. I dimly remember the name, so I can go back and look. Anyway, we will set up something for that. So
Great.
Those of you watching can probably work out from this that we do a lot of work with Minotaur. It's been a great partnership.
Absolutely.
I don't talk to Kelley as often as I do the publicists who are, working on setting up promotions with us, and the author events department with whom we are on intimate acquaintance, because without, seriously, Kelley, without the support, none of this would work. But I have to say that Debbie and her colleagues in your author events section are absolutely terrific.
They're great. They're absolutely great. And they've really jumped on, this question of how to convert all these potential events that were in person into online events that people will want to attend or want to watch. And they've been amazing, absolutely amazing in tough times.
They really have. So I'm going to stop the recording now, but hang on for a minute so we can have a couple of words. And I want to thank you because this has really been fun. I love it when you sell me books.
Absolutely. I'll do it more.
Okay, wait, stop recording. Do I want to stop cloud recording? Yes.